Welcome in to this week's Noon Dish. It's been a while. Sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. That is Don Callahan enjoying a snack. I'm Tommy Ashley. Have not eaten anything all day, but have been working. Shout out to the few people that are in here. These are the dedicated ones, Don.
Sean, shout out to Sean. Sean
Dude
is
in
like
every
the
chat.
all-time MVP.
He does these more than I do.
Yeah, in here doing our job, saying to smash that like button. He greeting everybody when he comes in. Kudos,
Gotta have
Sean.
fans.
I wish Sean lived
Hey.
a little closer. Maybe next time I go to Pennsylvania, we can get together.
Yeah, I'm not going to Pennsylvania. All right, let's talk about this because we're not going to do a full hour here because life happens, got things to do, but wanted to bring you a latest update on the recruiting trail for North Carolina football. Clearly, those 4 losses sort of set some program turmoil ablaze, I guess, and has a lot of speculation going on about coaches and coaching staffs and all that kind of things. But Don, the crazy thing with that is recruiting still has to happen. And we can start with the bad news first. North Carolina had 3 decommitments recently. I'm not sure, though, that any of them were terribly shocking.
No.
Given where these young men ended up committing. But your thoughts, and we can go through them. Logan Ferrell, tight end. Marshall Pritchett, a tight end. Anthony Kruah, a linebacker. Committed to North Carolina, decommitted from North Carolina, and ended up at places maybe a little better for their situations. But Don, just sort of run through them right fast.
Well, before we get to that, can we do a little housekeeping?
Oh yeah, I always forget the housekeeping. I'm trying to jump straight into everything.
Tommy's got to catch a flight or something. And you also sound tired, like you just rolled out of bed. But I know you did your 8 miles this morning, so I feel like a slacker, which is good. So now
you are a slacker, but we won't talk about that too much.
Well, now I'm going to definitely make sure I get my walk in today. But chat MVP from God knows when the last time we did a podcast was. I know it was after the JMU game at some point.
I'm impressed that you keep notes. I really am.
Well, I'm a professional. What can I say? So Jim Holland, just unbelievable. I know he's been an MVP before, and I think he's been an MVP pretty recently. He was just on it the last time we were all together, very active in all of that. And you and I didn't get a chance to talk about top 5. I know it has passed, but I was thinking top 5 Halloween candy. I think we've done it a year ago. But I feel like it's just a topic that you could bring up every year. Maybe thoughts change. What are your thoughts on that top 5?
Well, we can certainly do it because we didn't have near as many trick or treaters here. We sort of live like off. There's 2 main roads in the neighborhood, and those roads were insane on Halloween. I mean, just crazy because a lot of times people will come to the neighborhood, drop a kid off at the front of the neighborhood, pick them up at the back of the neighborhood, and they get crazy amounts of candy. Well, the way our house is situated, we're not on that main drag, so you have to intentionally really come over here. It's a good street, used to be a good street, but you can handle all you need on the main 2 drags in the neighborhood. So that being said, we have a lot of leftover Halloween candy. So I actually have 5 I can give you.
So I might be coming over your house then, get some of that leftover Halloween
candy.
Well,
got some leftovers, and that's why I'm walking so much, because I got to walk off the candy. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So I obviously have a little one who doesn't get candy, and we walked around with him, but he didn't get any candy. We just kind of ended up stopping at a neighbor's house and talking for the rest of the night. And my 2 older kids didn't really go trick-or-treating. They kind of did whatever older kids do. So, but we did have a bunch of leftover candy because my wife always buys too much. Whatever it is, my wife always buys too much. So anyway, so she's like, well, you need to go and get rid of that candy because I don't want to eat it. And I was like, okay. So I brought it up to the man tower. I killed that bag of Reese's peanut butter cups in like one night.
I can't do it, man. I got to keep my figure going, and it's I'll tell you, my favorite is peppermint patties.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if it's my favorite. It's in the top 5, but I'll eat the Reese's Ghost. They're the Reese's Cups. I just don't like having to take the paper off of them. So I
Okay.
just get the ones that don't have the paper. I'm getting more and more on those. But anyway, we'll save that for the end.
Yeah. Say that for the end.
So Jim Holland, shout out to Jim Holland for the chat. If you're listening later or if you pop up in here, you are the MVP.
Yeah, I don't see him yet, but
and so we'll go from there. But let's talk about these decommitments because I think folks fret a lot. Preston mentioned turmoil or NIL issues. I would think it's turmoil, but I would think it's also local, hometown schools-ish type thing.
Yeah, so I think what it really is, and this is where the wins and losses actually do impact recruiting, and it's not a direct impact. So everyone's going to be like, oh, but you've been telling me wins and losses don't matter. No, directly they don't. Indirectly they do. And if we could take each one of these situations, because I know you hate when I say, everything situationally, but you look at like Logan Ferrell, for example, and about a week before he decommitted, I was talking to his dad, and he told me flat out, he's like, we committed to North Carolina because we wanted, and Logan wanted to play for Mack Brown, a Hall of Fame coach. And also his goal, obviously, with most kids is to go into the NFL. And what better way to help that path than by having a former NFL head coach be your position coach. And so they love the idea of Freddie Kitchens coaching Logan. And I think what really happened, they definitely had fears of, will they still be here? So it wasn't, they didn't care about the wins and losses, directly, but they were fearful that these wins and losses could determine whether Mack Brown and Freddie Kitchens would still be on staff. And he was the one who, he didn't tell me ahead of time, and he didn't even tell the UNC staff ahead of time. And Trey Blue, who I did a story with, I think it was last week, actually kind of put it out there on the record that Logan didn't even tell the other commits ahead of time. But my guess is they visited Illinois, local school. He's been there a gazillion times. And their staff probably said, hey, look, we have a spot, but that door is not always going to be open. UNC, who knows who's going to be on that staff, got to make a call. And they probably they clearly made that call for to stay in state. And it makes sense. I think also it's a gamble, for out-of-state kids, particularly. In-state kids, you feel like they'll probably be taken care of, but out-of-state kids, especially that far away, it's a bit of a gamble for them to kind of stick it out with North Carolina. Marshall Pritchett, is a bit of a unique case because it always felt like he was always shopping around. And so I don't know. I never really got even when he committed, it never felt great. Even leading up to it, I can remember the conversations we had, and it didn't feel like he was ready. It felt like it was kind of like he rushed into it. But I think the fact that they didn't know who was going to be coaching him clearly impacted or pushed him towards Alabama. So I don't know. I don't have a great of a feel on that one. Now, Anthony Kruah, I have an unbelievable relationship with, and I think a lot of it is because he's from Philly. I'm from Philly, if you don't know, and we always connected. He gave me the clear heads up and said, hey, this Saturday, I think 11 o'clock, I'm going to announce I'm flipping to Georgia. Please don't say anything, but I wanted to let you know so that you can prepare and all that sort of stuff. And in talking to him, it clearly was, and this is before and after he made this decision, it clearly was, if I knew for certain that the UNC coaches were going to be there, that's where I would be. And I think that his family, they were very loyal people, and they wanted to honor their commitment. That was a big part of why he stuck with North Carolina for so long. And the education was very important to his parents, who I believe are immigrants, I think. Don't quote me on that because I could be wrong on that. But they were, they loved the education North Carolina brought. He also clicked strongly with Tommy Thigpen, and obviously you got to wonder if something were to happen with the staff, and there has been a bunch of rumors and all that, and I'm sure Georgia was kind of feeding into that. it made it easy for him to make the switch. And I think that was the main part. And then really, I mean, is it hard to commit to Georgia being an in-state kid, and what Georgia has done recently and the trajectory of that program? No, it's not. So I think the big part of it was just the uncertainty of what was going to happen with North Carolina's staff, because all of this happened really. I think it all happened that week between the 4-game losing streak and the 2-game winning streak. Is it a streak if it's 2 games?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's close.
Yeah,
3 would be a streak. 2 is a trend.
Yeah. What is that Major League? The movie Major League. The saying he said.
You were trying to rack into my deep recesses.
I think he says. I think if you win a 3rd game, that's what we call a winning streak. So
yeah.
So North Carolina will have a chance to do that in a couple of weeks. But anyway, so it happened right in the middle there. I think, besides maybe Marshall, I think the other 2 would have stuck if they were guaranteed that the staff would stay intact. But clearly there were some concerns with both of them. And to be honest with you, Marshall, talking to sources, I don't think North Carolina was too upset to see Ferrell leave. They were concerned with the knee injury at that specific position, tight end. If you look at it, the past 3 class or the prior 2 classes, North Carolina had signed a tight end with a knee injury, and neither of those 3 guys have been able to contribute yet. The first was Randolph. The second, the most recent, was Lawson. And those guys, even though they're recovered, are still not able to contribute. And I think the staff was kind of like, oh man, a 3rd? This is not good. And I think also the staff wants to I think tight end is going to be a position that they definitely hit up in the portal. So you want to have that spot. But from my understanding, just so you know, I'm not just kind of blowing smoke, like they don't give a crap about losing these guys. Marshall was a guy that they felt like could definitely do some good things in their offense. And I know the staff absolutely loved Kruah. And, just watching his film, you could see he was a guy that that Tommy Thigpen just loves, that he kind of fits that mold, that playmaker kid. And I think really he probably would have been a higher recruited kid had he played on a better football program.
Yeah, I mean, you just talked for 7 minutes. That might be your longest monologue ever. But Pritchett out, Ferrell out, Kruah out, Don, and we're talking with Don Callahan here on the Noon Dish. Shout out to the folks that have straggled into the room. It's always cool to see live people.
on Alan? So I was at the game last night, and Hurricanes won 6-4, but it was 4-4 until like 40 seconds left in the game. The Flyers are terrible. They're one of the worst teams in the league. And this happened the last 2 years. The Flyers, one thing the Flyers do is because of their coaching staff, they play really good defense. And the Hurricanes really struggle with the Flyers defense. And this is why the Hurricanes constantly choke in the playoffs, because once other teams start playing playoff defense, they don't score as much. So, kudos for your win last night, but it doesn't speak too well for the playoff chances. You guys will definitely have a better record than the Flyers. You're a better team than the Flyers right now. But you guys got to figure out how to stop some of these defenses, because the Flyers are not talented, and the Flyers are averaging like 1 goal a game. And the Flyers scored 4 last night. So,
aren't the Hurricanes 7-0?
No, they're not undefeated.
Oh, they're not.
I think they have like 2 losses.
Oh, I don't keep up, and
I did say do.
You are an interesting bird and your Flyers, but yeah, it was good to see you go all the way there on Halloween, or last night, not on Halloween, on election night, and see your team lose. Pennsylvania kids watching watching hockey on election night.
We're loyal. Yeah. Once the Hurricanes take the tank, let's see where all those fans are at, because I've been to a bunch of Hurricanes games.
Alan Minton corrected me. 7-game winning streak. We'll take it. Don, offers are still going out, and yes. I saw a couple that you've updated us, and they are commits to other schools. North Carolina is trying to get into the race. Just sort of highlight those 2 for us.
Yeah, so the first one is God, now I'm going blank on the name.
Atlanta. You
Goodness.
literally told me, let's talk about these people.
Yeah.
Jamien Little, I'll give you one.
Jamien Little. God, one blank. Okay, so I went out there to Hickory to spend some time with him as coach, kind of get a feel for the situation, better feel for the situation. So yeah, I mean, he's a kid who since March, he's been committed to Wake Forest, and a kid that has been on North Carolina's radar. They brought him to campus a couple of times early on in his recruitment, and then offered him. I think a lot of it was just watching his film. He has great film from his junior season. His senior season's going really well. That Hickory team won the state championship last year. They're undefeated right now and beating the snot out of everybody they're playing. So they have a really good chance to make at least a strong push for a championship again. And he's a big part of that. He's a big piece of their offense and also the return game. But he's definitely open to North Carolina, and I said to him flat out, I said, because I want to be, respectful. Like, hey, if you're firm with Wake Forest, there's no point in me messing with you. And he said, no, I'm open. I'm probably going to end up visiting. And then, he gave me a little bit more details on those plans when I came by his school. We ran the story on Monday, I believe. And it has a little bit more detail. So he's a kid I expect North Carolina to definitely be involved with. And it's kind of a perfect situation because he's an in-state kid from a currently winning program, although Hickory has a great tradition. He's committed to Wake Forest, which isn't like in this great spot. Although I don't know, is there any sort of hot seat stuff with their staff? I don't know.
Not that I've heard, but I mean, Wake Forest is different. I think, I think teams, and I've mentioned this before, I think teams like Wake Forest, even Duke to a certain extent, but those type teams, this portal era is just killing them. Mm-hmm. And because obviously, well, for obvious reasons. But anyway, Wake Forest, of course, Carolina and Wake play, so good time to see both teams.
But
tell me a little bit about. Go ahead.
Wake's doing well though. Not Wake. Duke's doing well.
Yeah, Duke's doing well, but Wake is one of those type schools that, since Hartman left, it's just kind of been a thing. Jamie Newman and Hartman and all had it rolling. But anyway, tell me about the other one. Aydan West out of Maryland, I believe it is. This is an interesting guy. He's committed to Michigan State, and now he's on North Carolina's radar. Now he gets a North Carolina offer.
Yeah, he's a kid who I knew nothing about until I was told North Carolina was going to offer him. And just looking, I mean, he's a kid on another undefeated team this season. They're undefeated. Maryland football is a little different. Most of the top players end up eventually going to and playing for one of the private school teams there. And so their private school league is actually very, very competitive. And I'm sure, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe there's some recruiting that goes on. Maybe it's legal. I don't know. But so he plays in the public school league, and so there's only like really a couple of public teams that are really good, and he's on one of them. And I mean, his stats are unbelievable. He played in 8 games, have 8 interceptions. I think I'm going off memory here. I believe he has like 3 or 4 returns for touchdowns. The interception stuff really impresses me because. And I was having this conversation with I can't remember the recruit now. I was having a conversation with another recruit, and just how once you kind of get noticed, it's almost like your Fridays are boring as hell because everyone stays away from you. And it's so easy for high schools because they don't rely on the pass as much that if they are going to pass, the quarterback obviously sees, okay, this cornerback is over here. I'm throwing over here. Mm-hmm. And so that makes the 8 interceptions all the more impressive because you would imagine that the opposition is staying away from the kid, but yet, he's still being able to impact the game. So, but anyway, he's another kid who he's been committed to Michigan State since June. He took a handful of official visits in the spring and summer and came out of that committed to Michigan State. He's open to visiting North Carolina also. I believe he'll probably have very similar visit plans as Jamien Little does. But nothing really is set for him. We have a full update on him that I posted on Tuesday, so check that out. But I think he's a guy that North Carolina will definitely mess around with. Michigan State's having an okay season, not great. I don't think they're, they have a new staff over there, so they're not in danger of any sort of crazy turnover on their staff. So, I thought it was interesting. I asked him if he had visited Michigan State again since the official visit. He had not. Do you have plans to? He says he does. But the problem is that the college football season has like a month left. And so, Chapel Hill is much closer than East Lansing. And I think that could potentially help North Carolina in this situation.
I want to talk about some other big news, but I'm going to talk about it after Johnny T-Shirt. I told you that, Don, we were going to have a shorter show, and I'm going to hold us to it. But JohnnyT-Shirt.com and Johnny T-Shirt on East Franklin Street certainly sponsors this podcast. Go see them on Franklin Street. And if you do that, or if you go online, you tell them Inside Carolina sent you, give them the code, you get 10% off your order. They've got everything you could possibly need. And crazily enough, Christmas is coming up. I cannot believe that we've got Thanksgiving this month and Christmas. Do what?
Do you know what you're getting me yet?
A better poster behind you. That'll be my gift to you. We will cover up that with a Hurricanes flag or something. But yeah, Johnny T-Shirt can certainly outfit Don Callahan with plenty of gear, plenty of stuff for his walls, anything you possibly need. Also, second sponsor, Congruity, is Matt at congruityhr.com. Small to mid-sized business assessment. Get up with them. Tell them Inside Carolina sent you. It's free. If you don't like it, it's free. If you do like it and you do use it, you might make a lot of money, like they've been able to do with their local business blown into a national business. Congruity, Matt at congruityhr.com. National guys pay the bills. About 22 and a half minutes in, it's the noon dish. Okay, Don Callahan, more recruiting news here before we get the top 5 candies, but I think this would be a treat for North Carolina. Tell me about an important official visit coming up that North Carolina fans should pay attention to. It was a guy once on the radar that went elsewhere, but it is looking back around.
Yeah, Isaiah Campbell, 4-star defensive lineman, highly ranked, was committed to Clemson. Even after committing to Clemson, he flirted with North Carolina a lot. He also flirted with Tennessee, which I know he has visited. I can't recall if he has officially visited yet, but not trying to pee on anyone's parade. This one seems like it's headed to Tennessee, just because I think, how things are going with Tennessee. From my understanding, NIL stuff is kind of involved here too, or is influencing things here. From
NIL,
what I've
you said NFL, I think.
Oh, NIL.
Yeah, I think you said NFL. I could have missed it.
Yeah. Well, either way, I'll defer to you, Tommy. You're listening to me closer than I'm listening to myself.
Somebody will correct us.
Yeah. So NIL, from my understanding, is having impact here. And we know, if we're just straight, if it's just a straight NIL race, Tennessee is going to beat most programs, including North Carolina's. So we'll see. It wouldn't shock me if the visit doesn't take place, to be honest with you, but it's on the books at the moment. I know that he had toyed with taking an official visit previously and obviously didn't. So we'll see. Maybe, it's the next home game, I guess. So, it obviously is a kid who, he was probably the one kid who mentioned the Tim Cross, I guess, firing. Is that the term we want to use?
Whatever. Parting of ways
impacted him. And thus far, the staff hasn't been able to kind of mend that fence yet. But I think also there are aspects outside the staff's control that are influencing things here, because, obviously the kid was committed to Clemson, and Clemson doesn't typically lose commitments. So clearly there's other factors here. And Clemson, from what I know, Clemson is not their NIL program is not nearly as strong as what you would think.
Yeah, Dabo Swinney catching some heat from some of the fan base there on their use of the portal, use of all that NIL stuff and all. And and then you drop one to Louisville. And then so Clemson's a little bit different situation than they have been in the past, but you're right. Teams like Tennessee have gotten it rolling for a variety of reasons, NIL being a big one. All right. Any other recruiting news we can talk about before I talk candy? Because I'm starting to get hungry and probably going to go raid the candy dish.
No other recruiting news. Any thoughts on the college football playoff bracket that came out already?
It's kind of like bracketology in the tournament, in the basketball tournament. It doesn't really matter. I think Indiana might be a paper tiger. I think Oregon's pretty good, but I still see a team like Oregon and Georgia being who I would favor in those, and we'll see. There's a lot of big ball games to happen. One thing I don't like about the playoff, and we've talked about this before on other shows, is that there are no real elimination games. And I guess this week's LSU Alabama, that is this week, isn't it? Yeah, I guess that's an elimination game, but should it be an elimination game if it gets you to 3 losses? Shouldn't you be eliminated a little bit before that?
I would think that, I mean, it's so hard because this is our first time going through it. So the expectations and everything, but you would think with 3 losses, you're not going to make the playoff. That's my assumption. And then, I mean, obviously things are different. Like, I think Clemson, we just got done talking about, made things a whole lot easier on the committee by losing, because had Clemson won, then it would have made things a little bit more interesting. I was actually had this conversation with some neighbors. This is before the Clemson game. Just what do they do? Because I felt like 4 Big Ten teams were going to be in there and 4 SEC teams were going to be in there, and that ends up happening, and Notre Dame. But the numbers don't work out because you thought they were going to put Clemson in Miami, but then Clemson ends up losing, so then you don't have to worry about that. So
I'm going to tell you this. It would not shock me to see SMU beat Miami.
Yeah.
And then you got SMU in as automatic berth, and then you got Miami in as a at
but
large.
Would you put Miami in? You think so?
If they were 11-1, 12-1, whatever it is, 12-1 and lost to SMU in the ACC championship, I think you've got to put Miami in, right?
Yeah, I think a lot depends, because I think the Big Ten is going to have 4 one-loss teams, because I think Ohio State beats Oregon in the Big Ten championship the next time they play. I know this is not set, but that's my expectation. And then you have Penn State with 1 loss, and Indiana, I expect them to lose to Ohio State. I understand that they might be a paper tiger. I don't know. They look pretty damn good when I've seen them. But if their only loss is Ohio State, that's hard to keep them out of it. And if Penn State's only loss is Ohio State, that's hard to keep them out of it. Of course, there's going to be upsets that we're not anticipating that's going to make things a little bit easier for the committee. And the SEC is a little bit more jumbled, I think. And then, I don't know, Notre Dame. What do you do with Notre Dame?
I mean, they're going to get in especially if they're just a 1 loss.
Yeah, if they win out, you got to feel like they're going to get in.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at it, there's possibility for some cool matchups, that's for sure. But I think I think my hot take is SMU is going to beat Miami and force its way in, and that'll make for some interesting matchups. SMU's different, man, and it's crazy. I heard this discussion. Newcomers winning all the big conferences, right? You got SMU potentially can win the ACC. You got Oregon potentially win the Big Ten. You got Texas that's still in it to win the SEC. And what's the other one? It's probably BYU.
Oh, BYU with Big
BYU and the Big 12. But it is, it's becoming much more of a mishmash of teams. And you see games like Oregon or Washington and USC, and it's a Big Ten game or something. But I just think as long as you get good matchups, but I think what's going to suck is if they're going to insist on throwing as many SEC teams as they can, and you end up having a 2-loss or a 3-loss SEC team getting in above a 1-loss another team. And So I don't know. I'll pay attention, I'm sure, and I'll watch, but I don't really get into the bracketology this early because there's so much to happen. And
Yeah.
but I do think if there was a way to get in, and it's one of those things, if you could get in without having to play a conference championship game, you have that week as a bye. But
Hmm.
if you play a conference championship game and win it, you're likely going to have a bye the following week. So it's an interesting take.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Well, I also think because of all the realignment movement stuff, I think this season has been a whole lot of fun with the matchups we've seen. There have been quite a few Saturdays where there were a couple of different games, Texas, Alabama, Oregon and Ohio State that we wouldn't have gotten before, and now we're getting, which has been exciting. And then, like as you mentioned, we're going to get a lot more with these matchups in the playoffs, which I think is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then you're going to get some possible rematches. But yeah, they know where the money is, and people will watch it. But
I
anyway,
I agree with Sean. If Notre Dame loses again, they're done. It makes it
oh yeah, yeah,
easy.
yeah.
It's just right now. And Notre Dame. I mean, they beat A&M. Who else did they beat? Louisville.
I mean, they beat everybody but Northern Illinois.
Well, I'm
So
trying to think if they played. Yeah,
they got
So
Florida State on the 9th.
yeah, but I mean that's not all that.
Yeah, but
And
I mean, before the season, that was like, I'm going to that game. Carolina's off. I'm going to Notre Dame, Florida State. Now, who cares? But
yeah.
I just
When they
don't
have Southern Cal at the end of the season, and now Southern Cal is like, who cares?
exactly. I mean, it's crazy, and but yeah, we'll pay attention to it. Been nice if Carolina could have won 2 or 3 more of those games they lost and been in the question, but maybe next year. Speaking of next year, Halloween will be next year since we've already
I
missed
was
it
ready
this
to catch
year.
that flight.
I'm ready to get out of here, boy. You got top 5 Halloween candies. Let's go through them. Oh, shout out to Eric Miller, who's up in Asheville where the Blue Ridge Parkway just opened up since Helene. That's good to hear. That still can't believe the devastation that's up there, and it's going to be that way for years. But it is nice to see them get bits and pieces awake and back to normal. Alan Minton, Reese's Anything, Payday, Snickers, Hershey Bar, Kit Kat. Here's Preston with his usual Kit Kat, Twix, Reese's Cups, Snickers, and anything Ross's mom gives him. Sean Crawley, Kit Kat, Reese's Cups, Twix, Clark's Bar, Mini Musketeers, Lovey's Fat Life, Reese's Cup, Kit Kat, Snickers, Twix, and a Zero Bar. Hadn't really heard of Zero Bar a lot lately. What are yours?
All right, number one by far Reese's Cups, and so this is what kind of added to my addiction already is that. So you've been in the Man Tower, you know that on the one side of the couch is the mini fridge, and so what I did was put the big ass bag of Reese's peanut butter cups in the fridge, and every time I wanted one, just reached in and grabbed them. I love them when they're cold like that, not freezer or fridge. You just pull them out cold. That's what they serve in heaven, in case you didn't realize. And then so number 2, Snickers. Love some Snickers. Love Twix. Love Kit Kats. And then my last one, I went Airheads. Airheads are pretty good.
I don't, and this is where I read too much or watch too much. I've gotten, I used to like stuff like Skittles and Starbucks and all that, Starburst and all stuff like that. But they talk about how bad they are for you. And so I've quit eating those things with fake coloring. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go, and it's ridiculous because it's probably nothing. But I'm gonna go peppermint patties. Love them cold, or I love them hot. Don't love them melted.
I love
But
you
I'll eat
too,
them all day.
Alan.
I'll yellow weird. I'm going Heath bars, especially the mini Heath bars. I probably eat 1,000,000 of them. Reese's. I don't. The cups are fine, but I like the other things. Like we've got some ghosts down there. I don't have to take the paper off the cup and make a mess. I like those. And I got Twix on there. And then my 5th, I'm kind of partial to the little square Snickers
Okay.
because you can eat them, and I do like those cold. I also like 100 Grand. I can't figure out which I like better there. But I think
So
if I had a bowl of candy, I'd probably pick a peppermint patty out of it first
That's
for whatever
interesting.
reason.
So, I mean, bowl of candy, I'm definitely reaching for the orange there. Orange for Flyers and Reese's. But,
So is that why you like those things? Because of the color of your team? It looks like
no,
you're
I
gritty back
love
there.
my wife will get mad because she'll be like, or Katie, as you know her, will get mad because she'll be like, all right, go get some ice cream from the store. And she's like, but nothing with peanut butter. So, because I do like to get the, the different ice creams with some sort of peanut butter in it or peanut butter cup or whatever. So it's definitely more of like that. I guess it's that sugary peanut butter that I really like. Plus, I love a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Sometimes, I don't have one every day or anything like that, but some afternoons I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I love it.
You're very different. Anything left before I get out of here? I'm gonna set a record for getting out of here with a new dish in less than 40 minutes.
Goodness.
When's signing day? December 20 what?
No, it's the first Wednesday in December now. They moved
That's
it up.
right. They sure
So
did. So less than a month or about a
we
month
gotta
out.
talk. Are we gonna do something or what? We're running out of time to figure that out.
Oh, really? Yeah, we're gonna do like the show we've done in the past.
I
What
mean,
saith the people? Should we do a
yeah, the
live show
people.
from the man cave?
Yeah, live show from the man cave. The people, let us know what you want. We'll see what we can do.
Jeez, that's a
We
long day. We got to
we
get Greg Barnes to come by to save the day too.
Yeah. No, Greg is always great. Keeps the conversation going. Because Tommy would rush us out of there. We'd be done in 15 minutes if Tommy was in control.
I'm in control today, boys, and it's going to be a short one. Don Callahan, shout out to you for all your insight inside Carolina or for Inside Carolina in football recruiting. I know it's an interesting time to cover it. I mean, you've been doing the updates, and if folks aren't premium message board subscribers, get on there. Don's got plenty of updates.
Yeah, let me give a shout out to the updates. That was the direction we decided to go in. Is obviously we've covered the new offers, but focusing a little bit more on the commits because that's really where the story is right now. I mean, I know 26 is important, but North Carolina hasn't had a home game in a few weeks. But just getting a feel for the commits, how their seasons are going, and just their mindset as they're kind of dealing with basically the same stuff the fans are dealing with. So definitely check out all of those. We've hit on most of them. Obviously, we still have a few more weeks left, and I'll be catching up with the rest of them. But it gives you kind of pretty good insight into their mindset.
Absolutely. Check them out at Inside Carolina on the premium message boards, the Tar Pit message board. There's also an Ask Don thread if you have anything you want to ask him outside of this show. And shout out to our regular subscribers and folks that join this show. A lot of you are familiar names. A lot of you carry the weight in the chats, and we appreciate that. And shout out to anybody new that's been here today. Everybody stay safe. Everybody stay cool. It's hot outside today.
It is.
About to get
About to
back
go
out
walk
in
out
it.
there.
I know. Got to get out there and get a little exercise in while it's still warm and before it gets dark. Shout out Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity and Don Callahan. I'm Tommy Ashley. We'll see you again soon.